how he is. This is the first in hopefully a series of character studies I'll be doing on the many intricate characters in the Dragon Quest series. These will be more laid-back videos to keep you well-fed while I work on the more bulkier stuff I'm working on. Today, I wanted to focus on a character who I feel is a bit misunderstood and quite tragic, who doesn't get as much screen time as I think he should. Today, I will be talking about Jasper from Dragon Quest XI. Hold on. Don't click off the video. Please, hear me out. I know he's controversial. I know he's a bad guy. But if you just sit with me, let me explain a story, let me explain my thoughts, and you'll understand why I think Jasper falls more into a grey zone rather than just a pure evil zone. Hello, Grania from the future here. Apologies for the poor webcam footage. Wanted to record a bit of a disclaimer. When I say misunderstood, I need to make it perfectly clear that I'm by no means saying that anything Jasper has done is like good or there's like a valid reason for any of it. The purpose of this video is to simply put Jasper under the microscope and try to not really excuse anything he does, but kind of understand it a bit more. I feel like I shouldn't need to specify that, but it's also YouTube, so people like to get angry. So basically, I'm just gonna get straight back to the video. That's your warning. I'm going to get a mosey on this right away. I'm going to discuss his character arc, so spoilers for Dragon Quest XI if you haven't played it yet, I highly recommend you play that game. It is probably my favourite in the entire franchise, so you should absolutely give it a go if you haven't, but I'm assuming you're watching this video because you're a Dragon Quest fan like me. Jasper is first introduced in Dragon Quest XI when the hero arrives in Heliodor to meet King Carnelian, in hopes to gain a deeper understanding of his ancestry, as well as the mysterious birthmark on his hand.
Do you really have the scar? Wicked.
Jasper is pretty much only there in this scene to follow the orders of King Carnelian, and Jasper leaves for the hero's hometown in Cobblestone shortly after meeting him. We learn quickly after this that the king views the hero as the Darkspawn, and locks him up. And Jasper had gone to the hero's hometown to burn it down and kill all of its inhabitants. So we're a minute in and we're at arson and mass murder. Right, I can fix him. The rest of Act 1 of the game shows Jasper being a thorn in the hero's Luminaras, and he's in a form of cat and mouse chase with the hero as an antagonist, really. We, the player, are basically under the impression that Jasper is just a loyal knight doing his duty to the king, and is just following orders under the impression that the hero is a spawn of darkness. But the waters of his character start to muddy during the Sniffelheim section of Act 1, where we learn from Crystal Linda, that it was Jasper that freed her from her captivity to wreak havoc on the kingdom of Sniffelheim. So, if Jasper is just doing his knightly duties to try and protect the world from the Darkspawn, why is he playing a massive hand in the destruction of an entire kingdom? Well, at the end of Act 1, it is revealed that King Carnelian was actually possessed by the Dark One, Lord Mordegon, who endeavours to take over the world. And what's even more surprising is that Jasper knew all of this the entire time. He actively took part in Mordegon's plans under the promise that he would be granted great power and great control. So, what radicalized Jasper? Basically, when he was a kid, Hendrik was mean to him once, and so he went on to commit arson. I'm Grania, and I like Dragon Quest. Okay, I'm just kidding. It's slightly more nuanced than that. Let's get into it. Jasper and Hendrik went to Heliodor as kids to train under King Carnelian to be Knights of Heliodor. The two, as a result, became as close as brothers while carrying out these duties. We don't actually know much of Jasper's history before Heliodor outside of this. It's also worth noting that they were introduced to Princess Jade, the king's daughter, when she was a baby. The pair together took a vow to protect her and all of Heliodor, and they were both given sovereigns of Heliodor upon her birth, which furthered the pair's bond. A major checkpoint marking the beginning of Jasper's gradual collapse goes back to when him and Hendrik were teenagers. One night, Jasper informs Hendrik of a secret passage within the castle that would lead to the king's private chambers, and holds a great shield, and encourages that the two of them sneak off and go through it in the middle of the night to view it. But Hendrik was caught sneaking out of his chambers and was reprimanded and severely punished by the king. Jasper seemed to have not really have intended to go along with the plan and was disgusted in Hendrik for him sneaking out. This led to a massive argument between the pair, which Hendrik implies in the game that was one of many that the pair had. This potentially led to long-term contempt on Hendrik's end towards Jasper, and their brotherhood continued to go downhill from here, eventually leading to Hendrik outright ignoring Jasper altogether. Hendrik's dismissiveness towards Jasper was likely a huge blow to his self-esteem. As the pair grew older, it became clear that Hendrik was outperforming Jasper in just about every regard, be it fighting or popularity or preferential treatment by the king, and this led to intense envy within Jasper. The dissolution of Jasper and Hendrik's brotherhood is the catalyst of Jasper's descent into deeper isolation and his built-up inner rage. It made him incredibly vulnerable, which is what made him the perfect target of the manipulation of Morrigan. It is unknown whenabouts it occurred, but it was likely soon after Morrigan possessed the king. As many lives were lost that night and Princess Jade went missing, presumed dead, Jasper had very little left to stand for or protect. And as a result, the promise of might and power Morrigan offered was enough for Jasper to completely switch to the dark side and now aid and abet in his evil scheme for years up to the arrival of the hero to Heliodor. Jasper offers a very interesting contrast to Hendrik, as Jasper is conniving and has a very firm grasp of the dominoes falling into line as Morrigan's plans unraveled. Hendrik is simply following orders, completely unaware of the king's possession and Jasper's betrayal. I think the game conveys this quite well, as while Jasper throughout the game holds himself with this charming confidence, Hendrik appears to be far more distressed and even frightened at parts of the story. It's something you only notice on your second or third or 10th playthrough of the game, but it's a very nice touch. And the reveal of Jasper's betrayal and the king's long-term possession takes a massive toll on Hendrik. And we see how the experience not only humbles him, but wrecks him with guilt, all throughout Act 2. But this video is about Jasper, not Hendrik, although I am always happy to segue to the true king. Anyway, this brings us smoothly into Act 2. Morrigan has now brought destruction upon Erdrea, and Jasper is now happily working as his underling. There is a lot of comparisons to draw from Jasper to Ladja of Dragon Quest V. They both are puppets of the true antagonist of the game and are acting solely under the promise of power. That's not necessarily super important here, but I thought I'd mention it as we learn in the late stages of the game how all the games are actually linked to 11. We as the player do not encounter Jasper for the majority of Act 2, only at the beginning where there is a confrontation between him and Hendrik. This scene shows a massive shift in the power dynamic between Hendrik and Jasper. As when before Jasper was easily knocked down by Hendrik, Jasper can now evade his attacks with ease. In this fight sequence, Jasper berates Hendrik for his apathy towards him, and is probably the strongest showcase of the unbound envy that has all but completely consumed him at this point in the game.
Why is it that you always thought yourself so much better than me? Why was it always you who was given the golden opportunities? Why was it always you who got just what you wanted? Why? Tell me why!
I find this scene very interesting because there's a line where it feels like Jasper is not necessarily trying to convince Hendrik that he no longer craves his validation and friendship. It's more like Jasper is trying to convince himself this.
I know the truth now. Love, dreams, light, friendship, all these count for naught. All that matters is power.
The fight scene ends abruptly when Jasper simply leaves Hendrik and the hero to battle another underling of Mordigan. We don't see him again up until we fight him for the last time in Act 2 in the dungeon of the final boss. In this section of the final stages of Act 2, Jasper tricks the party with an apparition of Veronica, who was killed by Mordigan, which sparks this incredible line.
Can I ask you to die?
Then Jasper appears to fight them. He's completely overtaken with the power that Mordigan has given him and has become a monster in the place of his previous self. It is also worth noting here that the character design for Unbound Jasper is very similar to one of the boss forms of Corvus from Dragon Quest IX, who is another incredible character that I would love to do a deep dive on, who carries a lot of similarities in the character background to Jasper too. But if you'd like to see a deep dive on Corvus, or if you'd like to see a deep dive on any character in Dragon Quest, let me know in the comments. After defeating Jasper, he falls to his knees and in his weakened state takes this opportunity to show vulnerability to Hendrik one last time and confess how he really feels.
Do you know what it was that I always wanted? I wanted to be like you.
Hendrik, however, is too jaded by the destruction Jasper caused and simply grunts and walks right past him, the very same way he dismissed him all those years ago. After this, Jasper's rage carries him to gather the rest of Mordigan's underlings for one more confrontation with the gang, but he is once again defeated, this time by the gang's mutual power of love and companionship. Jasper is ultimately killed by the very thing he always wanted. As he lays on the ground, taking his last breaths, Hendrik kneels before him and reveals his own true feelings to Jasper.
You speak of surpassing me, but in truth it is I who always followed in your wake. You were the one who spurred me on, the light that guided me. Without you, I would never have become myself. How is it that you never knew?
Before Jasper can say anything in response, he fades away into death. This whole scene is kind of glossed over quickly as it's overshadowed by the final showdown with Mordigan, but I'd like to linger on this just for a moment as I think it's very important to Jasper's story. Upon reviewing his past, it becomes incredibly clear that Jasper really looked up to Hendrik and wanted to stand side by side with him, not against him, at his side. This is further explored in a diary entry by Jasper found later in the game. It is a month now since Hendrik returned from his training in Porto Valor. In that short time, he has grown tall, and his bearing is now very much that of a knight. I asked that he spar with me, but I was no match for him. No longer is he merely physically stronger, his sword skills have been honed to an extraordinary degree. But it was not his blows that hurt me the most. No, it was the way he reached out his hand with a smile to help me up after he knocked me to the ground, just as he did when we were children. Yet again, he surpassed me. We vowed to serve and protect this kingdom together, but perhaps he has forgotten this. Or does he view it as a childish promise, best co-signed to the past with the memories of all we shared? But I've not forgotten. I still imagine us fighting alongside the king to defend the honour of Heliodor. I will not let that dream die. I will do all that I can to make it a reality. While aspects of the story easily point to Jasper being simply a conniving little brat, I find him a lot more poignant than that. A lot of the falling out between Hendrik and Jasper, while petty, are incredibly realistic for things to happen between teenage brothers. Competitiveness, miscommunications, schemes to get the other brother into trouble. It's juvenile, but realistic. It becomes amplified in a world as full of magic and fantasy as Dragon Quest, where resentment and anger could actually manifest into far more destructive ways, such as becoming an underling of the Lord of Darkness. It's so interesting to me in Dragon Quest when they throw in these storylines that are in essence very human. While Jasper has always envied Hendrik's physical strength and popularity, Hendrik secretly envied Jasper for his emotional strength and determination. Hendrik likely saw the confidence in Jasper after he became a pawn of Morrigan, and without the context, believed that Jasper was simply unfazed by the uncertainty surrounding them, and was able to show unbound morale and suave, even when faced with the alleged spawn of pure darkness. And you know what? Maybe I'm being a bit too analysing of my theories behind the thoughts of these fictional characters in a Square Enix game. But even if none of this was necessarily intentional, it adds up and makes a lot of sense to me. And that's basically it for Jasper's character. Is what I would say if there wasn't an Act 3 that basically reverses everything that happens in Act 2. Oh, Square. In the true outcome of the story, the hero goes back in time to undo all of the death and destruction that occurs when Morrigan takes over the world and is able to call out Jasper before he sabotages the gang. This unfortunately leads to a much less ceremonious outcome for Jasper. As only the hero knows that King Carnelian is possessed by Morrigan, he intervenes before the hero can say anything. If he does say anything at all, that is. Given the fact the hero is a silent protagonist and has no dialogue in this game, I can only imagine all he could do is make noises and gesture towards the king in a Courage the Cowardly Dog fashion. That's so stupid. The king thanks the party for alerting him to Jasper's betrayal and basically pins everything on him, and before Jasper can say anything on the matter, kills him on the spot. And that's basically it for most of Act 3. Really, for the entirety of Act 3, he's barely even thought about again, which made me pretty annoyed. Until way after I even beat the game, I was roaming around Heliodor Castle and I noticed these glowing spots that led me to the final resolution of Jasper's character. The gang follow a series of ghostly events that lead them to the top of the castle. They are met with a black ghostly apparition, which Rab diagnoses as a case of Jasperitis.
They say those the monsters take before they've finished their business in this life come back as bitter black spirits. Looks like that's what we're dealing with here. Aye, it's Jasper like as not.
This is where things get interesting. Hendrik stands forward and takes on all the responsibility he had in the hand of Jasper's descent into madness.
Hendrik, that's not the man you knew. It's nothing more than the darkness he left behind him.
A darkness I helped create. A darkness I must destroy.
Now realizing that Jasper cannot rest as long as he is a spirit with unresolved hatred, Hendrik stands single-handedly to fight his raging spirit. Something to note is this battle has the same radial blur we see in any flashback of Hendrik and Jasper, possibly hinting at the fact everything the pair has been through up to this point has culminated into this final confrontation. In this final showdown between two estranged brothers in arms, Jasper cycles between different forms of his darkened self, and as Hendrik overpowers him once again, it puts the ultimate pressure on Jasper's insecurity. There's a moment in this fight where Jasper, in a weakened state, clutches at his head and thrashes out of sheer mental anguish. And this honestly made me think about Jinx in Arcane, who, the more I think about, is very similar to Jasper, being abandoned by her sister and that leading to her wielding unbound power as an underling of the antagonist. That's also not really relevant here, but a cool parallel.
Oh, the treachery! Every single person is my enemy!
But the battle must come to an end, and with one final blow, Hendrik defeats Jasper's spirit, putting an end to his torment at last. Beating Jasper leads to a very heartbreaking monologue from his ghost.
Do you know what it was that I always wanted?
wanted to be like you.
Wait, doesn't this sound familiar?
I wanted to be like you.
That's right, it's the exact same monologue as before from when he dies in Act 2. Except this time, instead of it coming from an angry, hateful and bitter man, it's coming from a defeated, lonely and broken man. And this delivery totally changes the meaning of what he is saying.
Again you surpass me. Again you outdo me. Again you gain. You leave me behind. You leave me behind.
This opens the window much wider into Jasper's true fear. It was never truly not being good enough, not being strong enough, or not being popular enough. Hendrik ignoring Jasper didn't hurt him because it made him feel below him. It made him feel abandoned by him. Deep down, Jasper could cope with being the weaker of the pair, of being the less favoured by the king, of being the less popular one. The true breaking point for Jasper was feeling left behind by his only friend in the world, the man he truly looked up to. This time, however, instead of Hendrik admitting his own respect for Jasper after he fades away, Hendrik gets to tell him to his face.
I was robbed of my home, my family. I was alone. You were the one who spurred me on in their place. The light that guided me.
Upon hearing this, the hatred leaves Jasper's spirit, and he is able to return to his old self again for a fleeting moment.
You are the same sentimental fool as ever, I see. You do remember that I betrayed you?
What follows is an emotional reflection between the pair, culminating in a final question asked by Jasper to Hendrik.
Shed no tears for me. I seek no sympathy. All I ask is that you answer one question. Do you still consider me your comrade and companion?
Always, friend.
How long I have waited to hear those words.
Jasper then smiles at finally hearing the validation from Hendrik that he always longed for, then vows to leave his spirit standing alongside Hendrik for eternity. And with one last swing of his sword, Jasper's spirit flows into Hendrik, and he can finally rest in peace. Hendrik says his final goodbyes, vowing to always honor the promise that he made to his oldest friend.
We are united at last.
And that's how Jasper's story truly ends. Look, I know Jasper did a lot of bad things. A lot of bad things. Not limited to treason, black magic, mass murder and arson, puppeteering a woman's dead sister, and being all around a smarmy little rat. Where was I going with this? I recorded an outro for this video, and then I edited the video, and I looked over the video, and then I sent the video to friends, and we kind of had a back and forth over Jasper's character. And I kind of realised when rewatching the video that I didn't really express any true opinion on Jasper that I had myself, and that's kind of poor form when I just spent like 25 minutes talking about him. Basically, the way I view Jasper is kind of the way that I would view other flawed and bad people in media. So like, for example, Light Yagami, Walter White, characters like that who are objectively just bad people. While that is true, that doesn't necessarily mean I don't like the character. I like Jasper's character. I don't like his personality and the things he does. That's basically my opinion. Any opinion that you might hold on Jasper is perfectly valid. Art, media, games, movies is meant to be subjective. It's meant to be something that you interpret yourself and derive your own meaning from it. With that being said, I think the thing I like about Jasper is the fact that like there is this human element to him. Yes, he's completely immature and he acts out and does absolutely deplorable things. To quote a Tumblr post, he saw a slippery slope and he got a sled. I'm kind of guilty of this myself, but I think a lot of us forget that the vast majority of people aren't super logical and are flawed and have irrational thoughts and do irrational things. In a perfect world, Jasper would have gone up to Hendrik and said, "Hey Hendrik, when you ignored me the other day, that made me feel really sad. Why don't we unbox this over a cup of tea? You say your side of the story, I'll say my side of the story." Like, it doesn't work like that. So that's what we get. I find Jasper's lore incredibly interesting just for me because I personally have met people like Jasper. I've met people who hold on to grudges so intensely they just never let them go, and they basically hit the self-destruct button on their life as a result. That's what made me find him a really interesting character. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know what you think about Jasper in the comments. I will see you in the next one. My name's Grania, and I like Dragon Quest.